Hello and welcome to Firstpost Spotlight, where we bring you the stories that matter the most from all across the world. From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, we shed light on issues that shape our world. I'm Joshua Barnes, live from the Firstpost studios. Let's begin with the top headlines. Israel intensifies its Gaza bombardment as Hamas reviews US President Donald Trump's proposal to end the war in Gaza. Reports say the Palestinian group is not open to disarmament. European leaders gather in Copenhagen for back-to-back summits on security, defence and the Russia-Ukraine war. This follows a spate of drone intrusions at Danish airports over the last week. German police temporarily close Oktoberfest grounds in Munich hours after a fire and explosions rocked a building where explosive devices were found. The Reserve Bank of India keeps its benchmark repo rate unchanged at 5.5% as low inflation and higher US tariffs weigh on the economic outlook of the world's fourth largest economy. And Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu delivers the country's 65th Independence Day address, saying the worst is over for Africa's fourth largest economy after a series of contentious economic reforms. We begin in the Philippines. The nation is mourning after a powerful 6.9 magnitude earthquake struck late on September the 30th, leaving devastation in its wake. By October the 1st, the death toll has climbed to 70. Hospitals in Cebu province are struggling to cope with the flood of injured survivors and rescuers still pulling bodies from collapsed buildings. The 6.9 magnitude quake, described by the US Geological Survey as shallow and therefore more destructive, struck off the northern end of Cebu Island near Bogo. It is a city of at least 90,000 residents. What followed was a night of chaos, fear and desperate rescue efforts as the ground continued to tremble with at least 379 aftershocks.
We were afraid. We thought we would have died by today, but we're thankful that we are all safe. I'm thankful to the Lord.
While the earthquake left visible scars across the Central Islands, in Cebu province, a commercial building and a school in Bantayan collapsed. A centuries-old Catholic church in Bantayan Island crumbled dramatically, its light-to-dern belfry toppling into the courtyard. Officials confirmed that the hardest-hit areas included Bogo, where at least 14 lives were lost, Malelin with 12 deaths, and San Remigio with 5 fatalities. Most of the victims died after being struck by collapsing walls and crumbling houses. In total, nearly 70 lives have been lost, and authorities fear the toll could rise as rescue operations continue. At least 147 people have sustained injuries across the affected provinces, and authorities fear the toll could rise as rescue operations continue.
We are prepared and we have the equipment needed for these kinds of emergencies. Our people are equipped with the training and specialties that we will use in these types of situations.
The quake knocked out electricity across Cebu and nearby islands after power lines tripped, plunging entire cities into darkness. Later, power was restored in Cebu and 4 other central islands by midnight, but a sense of fear and uncertainty remained. Many residents, still shaken by the disaster, spent the night in the streets or open fields, terrified of returning to their homes as aftershocks rattled the ground.
We are still anxious because there are still aftershocks. Now, we have even lost count of the number of aftershocks we've experienced because there are a lot of them, and it's been like that since last night. I haven't even managed to get any rest yet.
And by dawn of October the 1st, rescue teams continued digging through debris, carrying out body bags as families gathered nearby in grief. The Philippines, located on the Pacific Ring of Fire, is no stranger to earthquakes. But for the communities of Cebu, Bogo and the surrounding islands, this quake has left a deep wound that will take years to heal. Moving on, a Dutch cargo ship came under a massive attack in the Gulf of Aden. Iran-backed Houthi rebels claimed responsibility for the attack. The Yemen-based group said they struck the ship with a cruise missile on September the 30th as it was headed to Palestinian territories under Israel's control. At least 2 crew members were injured in a fire sparked by the missile explosion. Aerial footage showed the damaged vessel with its crew being airlifted by helicopters to safety. EU naval forces that are part of Operation Aspides led the rescue. 19 crew members were evacuated in a mission that officials say prevented an even bigger maritime disaster. The Amsterdam-based operator confirmed the ship was in international waters when it was hit. The company reported substantial damage to the vessel. In a televised statement, a Houthi military spokesperson said the Dutch ship was targeted for violating what the group calls an entry ban on Israeli ports amid the raging war in Gaza. Listen in.
The naval force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a military operation targeting the ship owing to the violation of the entry ban to the ports of occupied Palestine by the company that owns the ship. The targeting operation took place in the Gulf of Aden with a cruise missile. The operation resulted in a direct hit on the ship, which caught fire and is now at risk of sinking.
Now, the Iran-backed group has escalated attacks on commercial shipping since 2023, claiming to act in solidarity with Palestinians during the war in Gaza. Data from maritime security monitors shows the Houthis have attacked or harassed over 100 ships in the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden over the past 2 years. In July, they sank 2 vessels, the Magic Seas and Eternity Sea, killing several crew members. The group's actions rattle one of the world's most vital trade routes that carried over $1 trillion in goods each year before the Israel-Gaza war. Israel, for its part, has retaliated with strikes inside of Yemen. Just last week, airstrikes on the Yemeni capital Sana'a killed at least 9 people a day after a Houthi drone reached southern Israel. The attack on the Dutch vessel marks the first in the Gulf of Aden since last August, expanding the zone of risk for global shipping. US and EU naval patrols remain on alert, with search and rescue teams ready in case of further strikes. With no signs of the Houthis backing down and Israeli strikes continuing in response, the Gulf of Aden and Red Sea remain among the world's most volatile shipping routes. Moving on now, Bangladesh's interim leader Muhammad Yunus is under scrutiny for his remarks on how long he intends to stay in power. The Nobel laureate took charge last August after mass youth protests toppled Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government in Bangladesh. Since then, pressure has grown for quick elections. Yunus, however, says he has heard certain people asking him to stay in power not just for years, but potentially decades. In an interview when compared to Nepal, which has promised elections in 6 months, the 85-year-old defended his extended tenure.
You said people are saying it takes so much time. There are also people who say stay 5 years, stay 10 years, stay 50 years. So people are saying all kinds of things.
Yunus has outlined 3 priorities for his interim government: reform, justice and then elections. He warned that rushing to the polls would only recycle what he called the same old stuff under different names and pictures. Yunus also addressed the status of Sheikh Hasina's Awami League. He said Bangladesh's election commission suspended the Awami League, fearing disruption in the supposed electoral reforms. The interim leader added that the party could be unsuspended in the future, without mentioning what exact steps could lead to such potential unsuspension. Yunus repeated his promise of an election next February. By then, he would have been in power for 18 months. Critics argue that the timeline is far too long and risks damaging Bangladesh's textile-driven economy. But Yunus insists only his government can decide how much time is needed.
Now, as we prepare for national elections in February next year, we remain steadfast in carrying forward reforms that place citizens at the center. Our focus is unchanging: transparency, accountability, and the rule of law.
The election needs to happen as soon as possible. We need a legitimate government so that everyone can go back to normalcy in their jobs. If the government is not legitimate, all businesses, including ready-made garments, will be affected. No foreign investors would be interested in us.
The interim government took power last August after weeks of street unrest that forced ex-Prime Minister Hasina to step down. His supporters say he is trying to break Bangladesh's cycle of fascism and corruption. But opponents fear the long delay in elections risks turning a promised transition into a potential power grab. In recent weeks, the demand for early elections has hit the streets. Last month, scores of supporters of Bangladesh's Islamist parties marched through Dhaka, demanding fair and timely elections. Now, amid demands for early elections, Mohammed Yunus continues to justify the extension of his rule, leaving many Bangladeshis to wonder if the interim leader is quietly settling in for the long haul. Moving on, and in a major development in the probe into Indian singer Zubeen Garg's death in Singapore, the police arrested Northeast India Festival chief organiser Shyam Kanu Mahanta and the singer's manager Siddhartha Sharma. The festival organiser was taken into custody upon his arrival at the New Delhi airport from Singapore, while the manager was arrested from an apartment in Gurgaon. The duo were then flown to Assam Guwahati for further investigation and have been placed in a 14-day police custody. The arrests come amid widening investigations by a 10-member special investigation team formed by the Assam government to probe the singer's sudden death on September the 19th, when he reportedly drowned while swimming off the sea of Singapore during a yacht trip.
We were working on a film, Roi Roi Binale, which will be his last film, and he was very passionate about it. So he was planning to release it on 31st of October. So maybe now we have to start working on the film. उस फिल्म में एक ही मेरा खेद है कि उनका डबिंग नहीं हुआ, जो voice dubbing होना चाहिए, because he had acted also in this film and in a very different role. He was very excited about it.
Meanwhile, the investigation has now extended to the international stage. Assam's chief minister announced on September the 30th that India's Ministry of Home Affairs has formally invoked the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty with Singapore. The MHA, in correspondence to the Indian High Commission in Singapore, instructed that the request be forwarded to the Attorney General of Singapore for necessary legal assistance. Officials said the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty will allow Assam police to access critical documents and evidence in Singapore. This includes post-mortem, toxicology reports, CCTV footage, banking records, eyewitness statements and forensic evidence. 2 Assam police officers are already in Singapore to coordinate with local authorities. The Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty between India and Singapore has been in effect since 2005. It provides a structured framework for cooperation in criminal investigations, including suspected deaths abroad, cybercrimes, drug trafficking, money laundering and organised crime. More than 60 FIRs, including one filed by Zubeen Garg's family, have been registered in Assam following his death. The case has triggered widespread shock and protests across the state, with demands for a thorough probe into the circumstances leading to the demise of one of Assam's most celebrated cultural icons.
This is a protest demanding for justice for our heartthrob Zubeen Garg. The mystery relating to the death of Zubeen Garg must be resolved, and the government of Assam must realize that justice delayed is justice denied.
With the arrests of Zubeen Garg's manager and Singapore's festival organiser and international legal cooperation now in motion, investigators say the case has entered a critical stage. They assured that all angles would be pursued to secure justice. That is all we have on the show today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Until then, thank you for watching.
From breaking news to the day's biggest controversies, shedding light on the world's top headlines, detailed analysis on the stories that matter the most to you. Catch it all on Spotlight at 6 p.m. India time and 12:30 GMT, only on Firstpost.